Hey guys, Darryl Griffiths here. Welcome to my latest video film review. I hope you've all been okay. This week I'll be tackling the much hyped, the much anticipated Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer, who provided us with the outstanding cop drama End of Watch and the brilliant war film Fury that was led by Brad Pitt. And this film is essentially the next building block for the Warner Brothers and DC cinematic universe, and trying to build upon the quite polarising Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. And for this film we see a lot of characters get their first big screen outing, so there is much to tackle. Is it worth the wait is the big question. Let's indulge. The film itself revolves around US intelligence operative Amanda Waller, played by the wonderful Viola Davis. And after the repercussions of Batman vs Superman, which I won't endorse, just in case you haven't seen it, she is trying to bring together a very morally skewered bunch of characters who are essentially the bad guys who are trying to deal with worse threats that are lurking around. And she instills the help of Rick Flag, a colonel played by Joel Kinnaman, whose other half is Cara Delevingne's June Moon, who plays Enchantress in the film, and you get a sense of her character and how she is brought to life. And with a entity of sort of fantastical entity lurking and causing havoc upon Midway City, we see the likes of Will Smith's Deadshot, Jay Hernandez's Diablo, Killer Croc, Katana, Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang all come together. Very odd characters, odd dynamics that are formed in unorthodox fashion, and they all have to sort of come together and try to fend off or eradicate this great threat. But beyond the squad there is the Joker, of course, Jared Leto, who's been at the centre a lot of the marketing campaign and a lot of the hype after Heath Ledger, bless his soul, who we really dearly miss on screen after the stunning performance in The Dark Knight and that portrayal. And he has a very intriguing dynamic with Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie, of course. And we get glimpses of that as it unravels. But that is essentially the plot here. I have to say, Suicide Squad is, put simply, is a deeply frustrating mess. And where do I start? The editing. Frenetic, sloppy, downright incomprehensible at times. And it really does stifle some wonderful character work that is provided by the cast. The performances are so stifled, I have to say. You're really annoyed that this is the serving that they get. Certain characters get particularly short shrift, the likes of Killer Croc and Katana particularly. They barely get an introduction, which is really upsetting to see. The standouts for me were Will Smith's Deadshot. He was great. There is a great deal of gravitas to his character, particularly with his daughter. And you're sort of begging for more of that and characterisation within the film, pretty much across the board, really. And, of course, Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie, is fantastic, but only when she's really given room to shine. And that's pretty much the case with a lot of the characters on display here. She brings a surprising deal of pathos to Harley, and the dynamic with Jared Leto's Joker, there are glimpses that further down the line they could be a really interesting pair and an engaging pairing on screen, but they're barely in it. And particularly Leto's Joker, I have to say, after all the marketing campaign, you'd think he'd be really at the forefront and prominent within the narrative. Well, I say narrative, but we'll shift on to that in a moment. And there was a lot of talk of his method acting during production, and obviously things that he was sending to fellow cast members that disturbed many. But the psychopathic character or quality that he brings, there's not enough of it on show, and it's a damn shame, because I really do think that down the line an inevitable face-off with Batfleck, and I really do think that the verbal tussles or face-offs that they could have could really be exciting to witness. But he's really ill-served, and the likes of Captain Boomerang. I mean, Jai Courtney, for many people, is a franchise killer. To be brutal. A Good Day to Die Hard was dreadful. Terminator Genesis, where do we start? But there is real charisma that he displays with Captain Boomerang, with certain wisecracking tendencies that he has. But again, there's not enough of it. And that's literally the film in a nutshell. There's not enough substance, heft to the narrative. The stakes are weightless. The threat itself within the film is just nonsensical. And you're really thinking, is this the best that they could do? It's a damn shame. The way music's used within the film. I mean, considering the synchronised bliss of the trailers with Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody with a no, 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 punch, punch, punch. And that sort of rhythmic and exhilarating quality that those has. There is simply none of it. It's a killer soundtrack. But the way they're utilised and integrated, they are just dialed up to 11 like music video montages, and it's simply not good enough. And it really does expose how sloppy the film is as a whole. It's so incoherent, and I really do think the longer the film goes, it screams studio interference. I think David Ayer, considering the grit and the grounded quality that his films have already really possessed, and I always thought that he would be a good fit for this film, but the dark, sombre tone that he may have teased, it just gets shot to pieces. And I think the talk of reshoots have really hurt it. I mean, the additions of humour and dialing up the action, it falls really flat. I think Ayer's been really screwed over here. It screams studio interference, I have to say, Warner Brothers. I think they've really dealt Ayer a bad hand. And considering since the first batch of reviews dropped, it's really set a precedent. I mean, we've got this fans versus critics angle again, which is really annoying as well. I mean, critics are sort of deemed these soulless faceless beings that are not fans of anything, and we just hate on everything. But on the same token, some critics sort of deem fans idiotic and literally across the board, and that's simply not the case. And those excuses are just pathetic in my eyes. At the end of the day, cinema is subjective. You can't take my word as gospel. At the end of the day, we all have free reign. We can see what we want and watch what we want. And for the fast pacing and the frenetic quality that the film had, which I didn't necessarily appreciate, you guys may appreciate, and that's great. If you find something worthwhile within the film, that is brilliant. And at the end of the day, what someone deems a masterpiece, on the flip side, could be someone's garbage in a bargain bin. You know, that's how it deals. And it's just, this whole argument has been so exhausting to watch again, to unfold. I mean, the whole talk of petition to shut Rotten Tomatoes down, which funnily enough is part owned by Warner even. And it's just such a mess. And I think all this fan culture and critics hating on fans and this whole rhetoric that it's made for the fans, but at the end of the day, critics are fans as well. It's just such a mess. And I think Suicide Squad sort of embodies where we're at with comic book films and summer blockbusters, and this lack of a sense of calm when films arrive. I think it's just really infuriating. And as a fan personally, Suicide Squad at the end of the day for me is simply not good enough. It will make a ton of money, which, you know, that's, at the end of the day, you guys want to watch it, and I understand that. A lot of fans will be rushing on opening weekend, and you'll make a lot of money. And opening weekend, it seems to be doing well across the board. So, you know, that's the bottom line. But Suicide Squad, particularly the cast, and Ayer particularly, if the studio really has interfered, which in my eyes it has, and it really does show, the longer the film goes, it is a mess. It is incomprehensible. It is incoherent. At least Batman vs Superman, I mean, the tonal choices or character choices that Zack Snyder made, not everybody agreed across the board, but at least that film and its sprawling narrative had room to breathe, and scenes had room to breathe. And for me, Suicide Squad doesn't have that. There are glimpses of promise, but again, it really does expose how backward, I think that's the best way I can put it, backward approach that Warner Brothers have had and DC have had in trying to match or try and replicate the success of, say, the Marvel films. There is no vendetta against DC. At the end of the day, I did quite like Batman vs Superman, sizable flaws aside, but Suicide Squad is just a miss. and the cast deserve better, the director deserved better, and at the end of the day, the fans deserve better. And that's all I've got to say on the film. I was genuinely crushed and disappointed, and that is a wrap on my review of Suicide Squad. Sorry that I've been so negative. Hopefully in the next review will be a little bit more positive in what I dissect. The next film will likely to be Nerve, which stars Dave Franco and Emma Roberts, and looks really interesting. I think it has a video game tendency, which very much I think Hollywood is slowly trying to shift away from with the comic book films. I really hope you can tune in for that. But that is a wrap on my review of Suicide Squad. I wish I was more positive. Sorry, guys. It's not really in my nature. I've been Darryl Griffiths. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel below. That would be greatly appreciated. But I'll see you next time, guys. Take care, and I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you very much.